not is not going to come on this, so she will not be part of the meeting. But when it comes to this, that doesn't matter, does it? No, because we're done people. Okay.
Yeah, they have to arrive in here.
Okay, so will she get the signatures and later? Yes. Okay.
And it all starts at
I can, yeah.
Diet. Yeah, there's a 6. But like my daughter, I thought she was the first one, but she's at 6:45. So I do believe her at 45 minutes. And then I could come back. 5 minutes early.
That's what I was like, she goes unsubscribe to all the stuff.
Got it.
Yeah, they were more.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Roll call, please, Mrs. Stamen.
Ms. Anderson? Mr. Ayers?
Here.
Mrs. Brockman?
Here.
Ms. Dixon?
Here.
Mrs. Hoskins?
Here.
Mrs. Kunkel?
Here.
Dr. Wagley?
Here. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Are there any questions regarding this evening's agenda? If not, I will take a motion.
I move the board approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Dixon, second by Mr. Ayers to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Vision statement. It is a vision of the Pleasant Valley Community School District to provide the finest academic and extracurricular programs in the state, not in some things, but in everything. Not for some students, but for all students. Welcome to our guests this evening. Thank you for coming. Before we go to the communications concerns and constructive ideas for the district, I want to let everybody know that this last week was American Education Week. So there's an American Education Week proclamation, which I'm going to read. Whereas public schools are the backbone of our democracy, providing young people with the tools they need to maintain our nation's precious values of freedom, civility, and equality, and whereas by equipping young Americans with both practical skills and broader intellectual abilities, schools give them hope for and access to a productive future, and whereas education employees, be they custodians or teachers, bus drivers, or librarians, work diligently to serve our children and communities with care and professionalism, and whereas schools are community linchpins bringing together adults and children, educators and volunteers, business leaders and elected officials in a common enterprise. Now, therefore, I, Nikhil Wagley, serving as president of the Pleasant Valley School Board of Education, do hereby proclaim the observance of American Education Week. So with that, just reflect on that. And now, welcome to our guests again. If you would like to address the board regarding a non-agenda item, now would be your opportunity to do so. Since it is a non-agenda item, we will be able to hear what you have to say. You have 3 minutes to do it. Please come to the podium, state your name, your capacity within the district, and then allow yourself 3 minutes. Again, we will not be able to engage you, but we will certainly be listening to you. Please refrain from using any specific situations or naming out any students or teachers. We want to keep this confidential to protect the confidentiality of everybody involved if there happens to be something like that. So if anybody would like to address the board, now would be your opportunity to do so.
Good evening. My name is Zach Olfers. I'm a parent in the district. I have 2 boys at Cody Elementary.
My name is Jessica Heising, and I am Zach's wife.
I'm not here tonight to address the board on any matter specific to myself, but rather to shed light on developments that played out over the last few weeks. Being that tonight we're welcoming a new board member and saying goodbye to another, and according to the agenda, selecting a new board president and vice president, I find it my duty to discuss some troubling findings. Not only do I stand here before you as a parent in this great district, but I also speak on behalf of an organized and growing number of concerned parents. Our group was formed with a simple mission. PV Live Free is a collection of Pleasant Valley District residents who share conservative values, advocate for personal liberty, and treasure deeply our love of God. Our group aims to build these values into our sons and daughters and throughout our entire community. Back in May, my goal was just to connect with like-minded folks and share my core values. What unfolded over the last 6 months has been amazing. Friendships have formed, memories have been made, and most importantly, our children's education has become our sole focus. Having a school board election cycle fall squarely into the timeline of our group's formation has been a blessing. These audience seats haven't seen this much action in quite a while, and the parents in this district have never been more involved in the educational specifics of this district. But this election has caused people in this community to spread negative and hurtful stories about our members. We've been described as alt-right, radically conservative, anti-vaccine, against diversity. It's even been said we want to take funding away from students with disabilities. Along with many other lies, these statements paint the group as racist, insensitive, and after reading all of the social media screenshots, you could make any number of incorrect assumptions. Here's the deal, that stuff is ridiculous. Not only is taking money away from children with disabilities absurd, but saying we're anti-vaccine is laughable. There are plenty in our group that are vaccinated. Although many may not be, and we choose to heckle each other over it, what we all believe in is choice. But I'm not here to go line by line defending our positions. Easily put, our stance is described as such. The school should never guide or influence the moral compass of our children. As mothers, fathers, and grandparents, this is our duty. We instill these attributes, and I believe personally the text of that curriculum was written long ago. Are we Bible thumpers? Perhaps some are, but we are diverse in our conservatism. Are we alt-right? Absolutely not. But we are a family-focused group in our values. We don't want our children being told that the color of their skin does or does not grant them power. We want all children to love each other. Does being involved in our churches, reading scripture, celebrating the nuclear family make us dangerous? Not to any person or group, but perhaps to certain agendas. In closing, I want to be fair to those that were affected by the vitriol on social media. Many people were attacked, and a couple names deserve mentioning. Catherine Kunkel, your name was muddled in these posts, and I'm sorry for that. My friend Aaron Hawk was also hurt by these lies. But what disturbs me the most is that in this district, where we state the claim that we are not for some but for all, these terrible attacks on residents came from within our own district. And I was appalled to learn that the author of some of this content was an employee of the Pleasant Valley Community School District. And not only was this individual an employee of the district, but the person behind these hurtful and untrue attacks was your son, Mr. Wagley. And I challenge you now to address these statements. If you were to sit here as president, and if you are truly for all of us,
You're done with your time, sir.
then it is your duty to denounce this vile behavior. If you do not speak, I will simply understand your silence as culpability in this matter. Thank you for your time tonight.
Is there anybody else who would like to address the board on a non-agenda item? Okay, we will go to our board members. Mr. Ayers?
I just wanted to reach out to Ms. Dixon and thank her very much for her years of service here for Pleasant Valley. Your guidance on the board has been greatly appreciated, and I will truly miss your friendship and your humor from on the board and your knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hoskins?
Yeah, I'm going to echo what Brent said. It's going to be weird not seeing you across the board table. We've been on the board together for 6 years, and I just thank you for all you've done for the district, and I'm sure we'll keep in touch, but I wish you well.
Thank you.
Ms. Kunkel?
I
I ditto everything that was said, and I just want to thank you so much for welcoming me to the board and mentoring me with this position on the board, and I can't wait to see all the exciting things you'll be up to in the future. Good luck to you.
Ms. Brockman?
Well, I'm going to be a broken record, and I'm going to say the same thing. I appreciate everything that you've taught me as a board member since I've been on the board, and appreciate everything you've done for the students of Pleasant Valley.
Ms. Dixon?
I intentionally said my parting words at the last meeting, since that was my full meeting, and Mr. Canwisher is taking over the spot momentarily, and I really want to focus on forward as well, but it's been a pleasure, and I just wish the district and its constituents and the families of Pleasant Valley the very best.
Well, thank you. And of course, I will ditto what everybody else has to say. We got on the board together, so I feel like I've known you very well. And certainly, we've grown into this board position together. And thank you for shedding light on all the issues and putting your comments and your work into it, because the school district has definitely benefited from you being on the board. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Klingesmith, anything?
I have nothing.
Dr. Lewis?
I have something.
Mr. Zimmer, you want me to wait until? Okay.
Wait.
Ms. Damon?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Struess?
Three things. First of all, in the consent agenda tonight, you probably saw we have 2 teachers who will be retiring from Pleasant Valley at the end of the school year. I want to take a moment to especially recognize them. 2 of them. First of all, Nikki Overstake, who's been a PE teacher for us for 41 years in the Pleasant Valley School District out at Cody Elementary, will be retiring. What a great career she has had with us. Amazing. And wish her all the best in her future endeavors. Also retiring at the end of this year will be Rick Larson, 46 years in Pleasant Valley as a custodian in Pleasant Valley School District. When you look at his career, amazing. But the neat story is he actually is a Pleasant Valley graduate, went through Pleasant Valley Elementary, so he ends his high school career at Pleasant Valley High School, goes on to be the custodian at Pleasant View Elementary, and ends his career at Pleasant Valley High School. So just kind of a neat journey, full circle around, and just so proud of him for being with us for 46 years. And again, wish him all the very best in his future endeavors. Gene, as I said, I would wait till tonight. It is a bittersweet night. 8 years being on a school board is amazing. I look at one of the things we stand for is having a clear vision. As we always talk about having the finest academic extracurricular programs in the state for all kids. You lived up to that in all the decisions you were making. I think about 8 years together as a team, and a school board is a team of people that come together, they collaborate together and work together. And you've been an outstanding teammate for this board over the last 8 years. I think about as a board, you make very sound financial decisions for us as a district and for our kids. And again, I think about all the decisions you've been a part of, from construction to budgetary to a number of items in those 8 years that you have seen this district grow. I'd also say, you've been an advocate at the state and local level for us, and I greatly appreciate it, because that is a huge part of being on a board, and making sure you're looking out for our kids in our district as well. And finally, always having a focus on what is best for kids. That has been our sole journey all along, and you have done a great job looking at student achievement and also putting policies in place that are successful for kids. So with that, on behalf of every single student in Pleasant Valley School District, thank you for what you've done. And with that, I'll give you the coveted gift of 8 years in your plaque that reads, Award of Merit presented to Gene Dixon in recognition of loyal service of 8 years to Pleasant Valley Community School District, 2021, the Board of Directors from IASB.
Excellent.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And now, part of Gene and the whole board's work is to do some more recognition in the last 8 years. It's always wonderful to come to board meetings now because of all the recognition we're getting. And this is yet another day where Mr. Zimmer is going to give us some more wonderful things that our students have been doing in the district to allow us to pursue excellence.
Well, tonight's recognition does cover the gamut. Oftentimes we might just spend time on athletics. That's not tonight, and those are wonderful things. But tonight I'm going to turn the front part of this recognition over to Mr. Erickson, who's going to introduce 2 more National Merit semifinalists.
Thank you. It's my privilege to introduce the 2022 National Merit Scholarship Alternate Entry semifinalists. These students will be competing for the 7,500 scholarships offered each year, and these students qualified based on the score on their PSAT, in which less than 1% of our state seniors meet the criteria. From here, they will submit their finalist application, and National Merit finalists will be announced in February. National Merit Scholarship recipients will be selected from the finalists beginning in April. And as we said at last meeting, this year is the most semifinalists in PVHS history. In 2004, 11 students qualified at this level, and in 2006, 9, and 2020, 10 students qualified. This year, with our 2 more, we have 16 semifinalists. So thank you for allowing the time to recognize these 2 students that qualified for alternate entry to the National Merit semifinalists for their wonderful achievements. So, could you stand and be recognized? Vinay Joshi, son of Deepak. And Arsh Manazar, son of Faraz Manazar. Congratulations to both you guys, and best of luck. Thank you.
Before you guys sit down, you can stand up again. First of all, if you could let us know what your plans are for this next year, if you know what they are, and if your parents are here, if you could introduce them as well, we'd love to have them be recognized as well.
Okay, so I'm Vinay Joshi. My mom is Jackie Joshi, and my dad is Deepak Joshi. I plan to go to an undecided 4-year university and major in either computer science or economics, or maybe both.
Great.
I'm Arsh Manazar. This is my mom, Rob Coca-Cola, and this is my dad, Faraz Manazar. Next year I'll be attending the University of Iowa for a major in computer science on a pre-med track and a minor in saxophone performance.
Great, wonderful. Awesome. Well, you, like we had said to the other students when they were here, you all make us so proud, and it took a lot of hard work to get where you are, and we just hope that you carry that into the future, and you obviously have possessed the skills that are going to make you successful in whatever you do, so congratulations, and hopefully this is the beginning of a very important and successful journey for both of you. Mr. Struce?
I'll just say, parents, congratulations. It's a great accomplishment for your children. We look, as Dr. Wagley said, look forward to great success. We wish the 2 of you all the very best. Enjoy the rest of your senior year in front of you, and good luck in college.
Great. Our next recognition is going to be for the PVHS journalism. Every year we have the journalism students come because you keep winning awards in the state, and this is no different. In fact, they've even surpassed it from last year. So, is Mr. Zimmer, do you want to?
I will introduce that. So the Iowa High School Press Association annually presents an Outstanding Teacher Award to acknowledge excellence in teaching and advising. At the option of the judges, 1 winner and 2 honorable mentions may be recognized during the fall conference. The award is named after Ron Ball, National High School Teacher of the Year and longtime IHSPA officer and newspaper advisor from Davenport. Judging criteria for this award may include any of the following: innovation in teaching and publication advising, reviving or building a journalism program or publication, special projects that involve student publications, articles about journalism teaching written by the nominee, special awards achievement or recognition. The eligibility criteria: any current advisor or journalism teacher at an IHSPA member school. The advisor may advise any 1 or more of the following: newspaper, magazine, yearbook and or video yearbook, literary magazine, photography, a student TV or radio station. Established in 1993, Pleasant Valley was proud to announce the 1996 Journalism Teacher of the World, Merle Dielman. 26 years later, we're again proud to announce Miss Maureen Dyer as the 2022 Rod Val Iowa Journalism Teacher of the Year, and she did all of the things listed up above except for the student TV or radio station, but everything else falls under the auspices of the work that she's done. So with that, Miss Dyer, are you there?
I bring my clan
You can, because that work doesn't happen without a strong group of students that she has with her, so.
Yeah, and actually, I didn't know that Vinay was going to be here. I should make him come up too. So Vinay, you need to be up. You need to be up here too. You're not off the hook. Okay. So it's that's not the only award we're here for, and I think you have the list of.
I do.
Okay. So I'll introduce who I have with me. You met Vinay already, and then we have Ayesha. And she and Chloe are both seniors, and they are the editors-in-chief of the yearbook. And then we have Alicia Pandit. She's the editor-in-chief of the print Spartan Shield. And Jane Abraham is the editor-in-chief of our online Spartan Shield. And we actually just had our November issue come out today, so she brought copies for the board members, so you guys can actually see what we're putting together every month. So we'll make sure you guys get a copy of that.
Okay. Can I introduce, or are you going to take the individual awards?
Do you want to,
Sure.
You want to read off the, okay.
Absolutely. So at the Fall Iowa High School Press Association Conference, they also include these awards that were announced in addition to Ms. Dyer's. The 2021 Emerging Journalists, only 10 in the state are chosen. Jane Abraham and Aisha Adhikari, and Alisa Pandit was a finalist. They also, as a group, received the 2021 Iowa Yearbook of the Year, and were also the 2021 runner-up for the News Team of the Year, which represents all of the online in copy. The Spartan Shield Online earned the title of Distinguished Site for the third year in a row, and is striving yet again. We are seeing an average of 17,000 page views a month on our stories, and our readership is growing. Currently, they have 11 Best of School Newspaper Online awards this year, a selective honor which means that your online story was picked up and published by bestofonline.com, a website that publishes the best scholastic journalism from around the country. Jane Abraham and Aisha Adhikari led a workshop on a journalistic integrity at the fall conference without an empty seat in the crowd, and did wonderfully. They were one of 2 student-led workshops that day. Jane was also one of 3 students chosen to speak and be interviewed by Charity Nebbe, which I listen to often, of the Iowa Public Radio in front of the 800 attendees about her experiences as a student journalist. They also brought home 31 individual awards from the fall conference, the most of any high school. If there's anything you want to add to that?
That pretty much covers it. But it's just been really, really great to watch them thrive. I think, they don't all write for online, but Vinay has, do you have 2 or?
Yeah.
2 Best of Snow awards right now. How many do you have, Jane? 5. Jane has 5 Best of Snow awards. That means she's been published 5 times on that Best of Snow site, which is really incredible. They're just doing wonderful things this year, and I was kind of reflecting the other day when we were having our AIW meeting that I don't think there are very many teachers who get to actually see the product of what their students are learning happen. And it's really neat. When I was at that conference and watching Jane and Ayesha lead a session with a bunch of their peers in front of them, taking notes and learning from them, it was just incredible to see that happen. So it's been just really neat watching the program grow.
And it's also been acknowledged that your peers also will respond to the articles that you're publishing in there, saying, thank you for the fair article. I really appreciated you presenting both sides of that. Again, a free press is one of the foundational pieces of this country, and I think you're just doing a phenomenal job, and we've got some really good things looking forward. Wherever your career lands, I think you're certainly heading in the right direction.
It's funny you just said free press. You just finished an article about the problems with charging for articles, all these websites that are starting to charge for reading journalism. So yeah, they're picking up really, really creative topics, and it's really great to watch it happen. So we're proud.
Girls who are seniors, what are your plans for next year, if you know at this time?
My name's Chloe. I'm just planning to attend a 4-year university to study environmental science and sustainability.
And if your parents are here, can you introduce them?
My parents.
If they're not here, okay.
Sorry. I'm also planning to attend an undecided four-year university and major in either political science or journalism or both.
I'm Alicia Pandit. I'll be studying finance and journalism.
My name is Aisha Adhikari, and I'm going to be majoring in public health at the University of Iowa on a pre-med track.
Great.
And I don't think I mentioned, but Vinay is the business manager. Sorry, I didn't mention that.
Well, great.
Yeah.
Well, students, I would just say number one is just thank you for what you do every single day, and you guys have really set the bar of what's an expectation at Pleasant Valley when it comes to writing on the online version. We are very proud of you, and you've been great role models for future kids coming up. And Ms. Dyer, you have set this level and do a wonderful job teaching your students what this looks like and how they can become such great writers. So thank you for all you're doing.
And congratulations again on the Journalism Teacher of the Year. Obviously, they are students that are listening to you because you're such a great teacher and they've done so well. So thank you for your dedication. You've really taken this to the next level, and we all appreciate it. And I get really excited to read the Shield because the articles are just so well written. So congratulations to all of you.
Thank you.
And then we have one last recognition, yet another thing to be proud of, because this has to do with our community that we live in. So, Mr. Zimmer, or?
Yes, at this time,
Thank you so much.
a little different recognition, but one that we're super proud of the work that our students have done. And for those of you that may have had the opportunity to be inside the high school when the pallets of food were lining across that hallway, that was unbelievable. So, Mr. Erickson, would you like to introduce our student congress?
Dr. Wagley, you said it best, that it's a community award, but it couldn't be done without incredible leadership. So I'm just going to turn it over. Our Spartan Assembly advisors, Rachel Hart and Zach Miller. You guys take it from there. Bring your team too.
So I think when we were started at the beginning of the Hunger Drive, we started with where we were in the past. And so this is my 4th year as the advisor for Spartan Assembly.
This is my 2nd year as the advisor.
And so this should have been the 4th Hunger Drive, but there technically wasn't a Hunger Drive last year, although we did still go trick-or-treating for cans on Halloween last year and raised roughly 3 pallets, which is like 120 boxes, and about $800 or so. Well, we are in the Division A of the Hunger Drive, which is the largest high schools in the Quad Cities. And so it actually is in the 23 counties that the Riverbend Food Bank serves. So Illinois, Iowa as well. So we, 2 years ago, won the Hunger Drive, got first place, and raised 65,000 pounds, which equates to about 40-something pounds per student at that time. And so as we sat down and discussed at the beginning of this year what our goal should be, we took the number of students we had and multiplied it by our pounds per student that we thought we needed to win or were looking to receive, and so we came up with the number of 73,000 pounds, which had never been done to this point. So,
And we actually ended up raising way over that. Our total poundage ended up being 79,344 pounds of food for our community.
and so I think the students will talk about kind of how we got there and the events that we did and the amount of work that not only the leadership team of Spartan Assembly did, but the members of Spartan Assembly and even members of the student body who got roped into helping out with a number of activities that we did.
Okay, so for I'd like to introduce the 2 events that we do. One of the 2. The first is we partner with Bettendorf Community School District, like the high school, and we host a we call it Fill the Truck, and it's basically where we work with Link with Sport to get 2 trucks, and we set it at whichever school the home game?
The football game, the Bettendorf PV football game.
Yeah, the Bettendorf PV football game, and we basically advertise a lot, and we ask students to bring in cans, and we offer them like prizes and stuff, and we really hype up the students to bring in cans. And then another thing we do is that we work with Hy-Vee and Fairway to have students stand in front of their stores a few days a week to stand outside and ask every customer if they'd like to donate. And this year we did something new where we created a QR code where if they didn't have money on them then they could have just scanned the QR code and donated online, which is one thing that I think really raised our how well we did. And so students would stand outside when it was cold, when it's raining, just anything, and they would stand outside and ask every customer if they'd like to donate and politely talk to them. So yeah.
And then we usually get the bulk of our donations from the school competition. So this year our theme was the Olympics. So we split up the departments at our school. So all the teachers were different teams, and they all had incentives for their students to bring in donations. And at the end we just followed our theme, and we had different incentives, and we ended up raising a lot of donations.
Another thing we did was trick or treat for cans for 2 nights. We did the night before Halloween and Halloween. So Spartan Assembly members, with the help of different teams and clubs, we all went around and divided up the district to go to different neighborhoods and go door to door asking for canned food items as well as monetary donations for the hunger drive. We also did a volleyball tournament at school, so we invited high schoolers to put together a team, and their admission was 10 cans or $10 towards the hunger drive.
I think Sydney found out how big the district is, because if we didn't make it to your house on 2 nights, there was still neighborhoods that we missed.
Yeah.
And I had people call and they were like, I got cans and no one showed up.
Yeah.
Someone will be out there.
Sydney, can you explain how you guys divided up to determine the maps of where you're going to go?
Well, I actually looked at the district map of the different districts, and then took just neighborhoods, rough estimate of how many houses, and then 2 Spartan Assembly members went with each other, and then they brought a group of friends as well. So, they were able to divide and get as much done as possible. So.
If you came to my room the Friday before Halloween weekend, Sydney had printed off Google Earth images of the neighborhood, a screenshot, and it had instructions like start here, and then these streets, and then what you do if you get money, and what you do if you get donations, and where you bring it at what time, and it was very well organized. So.
And then we also obviously brought all those cans from the cars, brought it into school, and stayed until 9 or 10, I think. Each of the nights, just boxing and weighing the cans, because we have to do that ourselves as well.
I think we did 270 something boxes.
Wow. That's really impressive. That's excellent. So will you guys, what was your goal? Was 75,000? 73,000. So you surpassed it by 6,000 pounds.
Yeah,
It's wonderful.
If you walk through the high school hallways, it was about 24 pallets, 10 boxes on a layer and 5 layers high. So it took, Argo Moving does our trucking for that, and that took 2 extremely full their truck to get it down there. And if we would have had 1 more pallet that was full, we would have had to take a 3rd truck.
So the goal for 2022 is?
Well, I have to tell a story. So we found out our total, and the kids were like, "We're going for 100." Yes.
Wow.
79,000 pounds has never been done by any
Yeah, 79,000 pounds has never been done by any school in the entire hunger drive. So.
Wow. It's wonderful.
Did you share the food is amazing, but the cash donation allows the flexibility to get you, share with the check that you presented them.
So we have a way of tracking our stuff. So I have a spreadsheet, and we roughly track about how much we get at each event. And by tracking, it's our student. Do you want to explain how we get the weight of the boxes?
Well, the weight of the boxes, and we have scales, right? And then you weigh yourself first, figure out how much you weigh, and then carry the box, and you stand on the scale with it, and then you subtract your weight, your previous weight from that weight, and then we have to plug in every single one of those numbers into the spreadsheet so we can keep track of the school competition and have a good rough estimate.
So we do roughly 35,000 pounds of actual food based on our scale, our bathroom scale measuring system that we have. But then we wrote a check for $26,001.
Wow.
Plus
Great.
another $3,500-ish of online donations.
That's great.
Well, to all of you, we are so proud of you. And the reason why we're proud of you is because this is a community event that comes together. and the storage facilities have been very low on food these last year and a half. So the work what you have just done has been amazing. Also amazing with it is the food that you are collecting is food that can be used, not about a competition. It's about finding quality food that people can have. So it is a great lesson that you are setting for all of us, the importance of volunteering and giving back to the community. So we hope you take this into your future life as well.
Yes. Out of curiosity, so once you guys get the food, is there any opportunity for students who have been really involved to see this go full circle, where they see the benefits by having people in the community having these meals and things? Is there any involvement there?
So every year as part of the Student Hunger Drive, they host a mobile food pantry, and so they cap the number of students you can bring to it because of space.
Uh-huh.
And so it's usually on Saturday morning from 9 to noon, and community members that are receiving the food show up, and students from all the high schools in the area get to kind of help bag the food,
hand it out to people, and actually have conversations, one-on-one conversations with the people who are coming to get the food, and
fill up the cars.
Great. Well, congratulations again. Now, I hope, now that this is over, just a plug because I'm a physician, we are in dire need of blood in this community. I know you guys are going to be doing a blood drive, so if you guys could put the same effort in the blood drive as you did with the hunger drive, that would be great for our community as well. So I was told by several physicians in the area to make sure that you push the blood drive because we are in need of blood. Thank you.
About the blood drive, we did fill all of our appointments for the October blood drive.
Okay,
So
and in December?
December
December
1st.
1st.
Great, wonderful. Thank you.
If anyone goes to the blood bank, you can tell them you're donating on behalf of Pleasant Valley.
Great, awesome, wonderful. So we've, we've raised the bar on National Merit semifinalists. We've raised the bar on the Journalism Awards and then on Student Hunger. So it's really impressive. So congratulations to the entire district and the whole community for their support of how well our school is doing. Okay, now that is done, we attended the Iowa Association of School Board Convention this last week. So just wanted to have some of our board members who came to the meeting, who attended it, give us a little update on what their experience has been. Who wants to start? Ms. Kunkel, why don't you go and say what you have to say?
Yes, I was appreciative of the opportunity to attend my first convention. And I attended sessions that discussed community engagement, equity and behavior prevention and response, and mitigating COVID through ESSER and GEAR COVID relief funding. Some highlights for me included the first session I went to, we sat in a circle with other school board members from other districts. And for me, it was interesting to hear the challenges that those other school boards are facing and how it's different than what we may face here. But also, I got to sit next to a high school student who serves on her school board. And she was just a dynamic personality. She had great leadership, and I wouldn't have known she was a high school student other than how young she looked. She was able to participate, and I just thought that was a great opportunity for her to learn those leadership skills, but also for the school board to hear firsthand when she participates how our policies are affecting the students. So I thought that was an interesting piece. I think something that was, I guess, just a quick shout out to Mike Klingensmith and Brian. I went to the COVID relief funding and I was all excited because I was going to learn some new things and bring them back here and say, hey, look how we can use this funding. But it turns out a lot of what I heard is stuff I already knew due to all the information you've already presented to us. So I'm just appreciative that we're in a district that is really on top of the funding and the policies and those resources so that we can make sure that we're taking advantage of all that's available to us. So I'm grateful, and I look forward to attending again in the future.
Great, thank you. Ms. Brockman.
Yeah, I had an excellent experience again at the school board convention. Something I always enjoy year after year has been the keynote speakers. They do an excellent job of selecting very good speakers for that apply to, you know, what we're doing every day, what teachers are doing every day, parents. It's just very insightful, and it's a great opportunity to just sit back and realize, you know, why we're really here, and what others are going through as well. So the keynote speakers, again, were wonderful. Very informative sessions. Like Catherine mentioned, I was actually in the same session that she mentioned first. And then also I had the honor of serving as Pleasant Valley's delegate for the legislative priorities. And in this session, our main goal is to select the 5 priorities for the coming session. And they closely aligned with what we had determined as a board, so that was very satisfying. Those were dropout and at-risk dollars, which as a district we're not getting a real good, I guess, a fair shake on at this point. So that'll be a good opportunity for us going forward. Mental health, which we've talked about a lot. Teacher recruitment and licensure, especially, you know, there's areas where teachers are at a shortage, so there's some good opportunities with that. And then, of course, school funding policy, as well as supplemental state aid. So those are the 5 priorities that we determined in the session. It was a great learning experience, and I appreciate you all letting me be your delegate at this convention.
Oh, thank you. I attended as well, and I actually participated in 2 sessions. One was on the early early dropout prevention, because we as a district were capped at 2.6% in 2013, while other districts were able to spend up to 5% of their student allotment towards at-risk. And as our district is growing, our numbers are going above 2.6%. So it's a definitely special mission for us here in Pleasant Valley, along with other growing districts in the area. And so I was on a panel with one of our congressmen, and then another board member, and one of the lobbyists for IASB, to try and have a phased-in approach to try and allow our allotment to go up to 5% over the next 6 years. And now, since it is a priority that Ms. Brockman was able to participate in, I think it's going to get some traction this year, so that would be really good for us. And then Mr. Struess and I also participated in another seminar on petition from the public, and how that bill, what are the intricacies of that bill, and that was well attended as well, wouldn't you say, Mr. Struess?
Agreed.
Okay. And then maybe when Mr. Kammerscher gets inducted in, he can give us a little spiel on what he thought of the meeting as well. So we'll give you an opportunity as soon as you get sworn in from the board. So that's really the convention update, and we just have the consent agenda to pass first, and then we will swear in the new board. So are there any questions on this evening's consent agenda? If not, I will take a motion.
I move the board approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ayers, second by Ms. Dixon, to approve this evening's consent agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so now we are going to adjourn the retiring Board of Education, which is Ms. Dixon. Thank you again. And enjoy your now free Monday evenings. And Mr. Kammerscher, if you want to come up to the board and take a seat. And
Okay, well, first of all, I'm going to call the roll.
okay. Oh yeah, we have to roll call please first, Ms. Damon.
Ms. Anderson? Mr. Ayers?
Here.
Mrs. Brockman?
Here.
Ms. Dixon? She won't be on the
Yep.
list, sorry. Mr. Kammerscher?
Here.
Mrs. Hoskins?
Here.
Mrs. Kunkel?
Here.
Dr. Wagley?
Here. Okay. So Affairs. Do you, Brent, solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge all the duties of the Officer of Director, Pleasant Valley Schools in the County of Scott, Iowa, as now or hereafter required by law?
I do.
Ms. Conkle, you're next. Do you, Captain Kunkel, solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge all the duties of the Office of Director, Pleasant Valley Schools in the County of Scott, Iowa, as now or hereafter required by law?
I do. Thank you.
And Doug, why don't you stand up? And Doug Hammersher, do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge all the duties of the Office of Director, Pleasant Valley Schools in the County of Scott, Iowa, as now or hereafter required by law?
Okay, to those of you who just received the packet, the color document needs to be signed by you and returned to me.
Okay, next order of business is the election of president. So normally what happens is each director gets a vote for the president, which we'll do first, and then after that we will do the vote for vice president. If you want to take your little pad and put the name of who you would like to be president, you can do that. And then, Mr. Klingsmith, will you collect them, or Dr. Lewis, one of you? And then if you want to tally it up. Yes, you do. You have to sign your name at the bottom.
Yeah, and remember, initial your ballot.
Remember what?
To initial your ballot.
Oh, yeah. That's like wait.
Yeah, Jody's not here. Or, I mean, Tina's not here.
Oh, yeah, Kristen.
We have them all, and that's Nikki.
So we have 6 voting.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay. So 6 voting for Dr. Watley.
Okay.
What was it?
All right. So next is vice president. So again, put your name on the ballot, your name and the person who you want to be vice president, and then that will be collected as well. And then initial it as well.
We have some people who put.
They put them, okay.
Some
Okay.
didn't.
Oh, that's his signature.
Wait, does it need to be on there?
These are the only 2 that are already.
No, that's her signature.
That's your signature. Oh, okay.
That's
Okay.
Okay.
So these are vice.
Right. Six.
Yep.
And it's for Molly.
From Ms. Brockman. All right, so congratulations, Ms. Brockman.
Thank you.
Would like to thank Ms. Hoskins, who has served as Vice President the last couple of years. She's done a wonderful job, and appreciate all the service you've done so far on the board in that capacity. And Molly will be a great addition as well.
Thanks.
Great. So now we have to do the oath of office.
Dr. McKill-Wogley, do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of President, Board of Education in the Pleasant Valley Community School District as now and hereafter required by law?
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Ms. Brockman, do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the Office of Vice President, Board of Education in the Pleasant Valley Community School District as now and hereafter required by law?
I will.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now that we have the new board sworn in and the officers, we are going to carry on with our normal meeting now with the,
Tomorrow we will decide.
oh yeah. So we do have to make appointments for treasurer and secretary. Kelly Hotler is appointed treasurer, and Deb Damon will be appointed secretary of the Pleasant Valley Community School District, each for a one-year term beginning in December 1st, 2021. The secretary and treasurer are bonded in the amount of $10,000 as per Code of Iowa, Section 291.2. And now the administration of the oath of office for the Board of Secretary. Ms. Damon, do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the Office of Secretary, Board of Education in the Pleasant Valley Community School District as now and hereafter required by law? Congratulations. And then for the treasurer, that the oath of office will be tomorrow. Will be done tomorrow by Ms. Damon. So that will be done tomorrow. Okay, now we will go on to approval of bills. So general fund.
I move that general fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $761,570.56 in payment of invoices presented.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Hoskins, second by Mr. Ayers, that the general fund warrants be issued in the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Nutrition fund.
I move that nutrition fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $89,360.17 in payment of invoices presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ayers, second by Ms. Brockman, that the nutrition fund warrants be issued in the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Elementary junior high activity fund.
I move that elementary junior high activity fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $1,016.48 in payment of invoices presented.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Kunkel, second by Ms. Brockman, that the elementary junior high activity fund warrants be issued in the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? High school activity fund.
I move that the high school activity fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $50,272.22 in payment of invoices presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ayers, second by Ms. Brockman, that high school activity fund warrants be issued in the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Management fund.
I move that management fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $17,982 in payment of invoices presented.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Brockman, second by Ms. Kunkel, that management fund warrants be issued in the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Capital projects fund.
I move that capital project fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $15,547.84 in payment of invoices presented.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Hoskins, second by Mr. Ayers, that the capital projects fund warrants be issued in the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? PEPAL Fund.
I move that PEPAL Fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $44,686.50 in payment of invoice presented.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Ayers, second by Ms. Hoskins, that the PEPAL Fund warrants be issued and the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Debt Service Fund.
I move that debt service fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $211,725 in payment of invoice presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ayers, second by Ms. Brockman, that the Debt Service Fund warrants be issued and the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Internal Service Fund.
I move that internal service fund warrants 6305 through 6311 be issued in the total amount of $478,959.63 in payment of invoices presented.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Hoskins, second by Mr. Ayers, that the Internal Service Fund warrants 6305 through 6311 be issued in the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And then Trust Fund.
I move that trust fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $1,471.05 in payment of invoices presented.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Kunkel, second by Mr. Ayers, that the Trust Fund warrants be issued and the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, we have no old business, but we have several new business items. Item number 1, change in the December meeting date. Mr. Struess?
So based upon your calendars, we were looking at having a meeting on December 20th, but there's too many conflicts with that night's meeting. So we're looking at moving it to either December 6th or December 13th. Looking at your calendars, December 13th, there is a chorus concert. So I know a couple of you might be impacted by that. And then we have the band concert on the 6th as well that might be impacted. So really it's the lesser of the two of those in terms of who is impacted. Brent and Jody, you both have students who are in band, correct?
On the 6th.
On the 6th.
Keaton's in both.
In both? And
You
Molly,
choir.
you have choir also, correct?
Can we do it on a different day, like Wednesday and Thursday, where there be conflicts as well?
Wednesdays
I think we
are
looked at that,
different,
right?
yeah. I mean, we could do either one because I think Tina will be here for the 6th also.
Yeah.
I haven't heard from her.
We haven't, okay. So either the 6th or the 13th, it's a balance between the two. Did you find out the schedule for the band?
So I have kids in a concert at 6:45 and 8:15 that night. So I could come, for the first 35 minutes
Can we start a
of
little
the
early,
meeting on the
5:30?
6th.
Could
We could do it at 5:30.
do it 5:30?
That work okay? Ms. Kunkel, would that work at 5:30 on the 6th?
6th.
Mm-hmm.
Then that would be fine with me.
Okay.
That should be fine. Let me just double check. Okay, so we'll do a 5:30 on December 6th. Thank you.
Okay. So, next is Pleasant View parking lot. Oh, I'm sorry, we have to have a motion on it. I'll take a motion.
I move the December 20th, 2021 Board of Education meeting be rescheduled to December 6th, 2021 at 5:30.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Motion by Ms. Hoskins, second by Mr. Ayers, that we move the December 20, 2021 Board of Education meeting to be rescheduled to December 6th at 5:30 p.m. Roll call vote, please, Ms. Damon.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Brockman?
Yes.
Mr. Kenwisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoskins?
Yes.
Mrs. Kunkel?
Yes.
Dr. Wagley?
Yes. Pleasant View parking lot update, Mr. Struess.
Yeah, so on the screen right now, you're going to see we've been working through, as you know, there's been concerns brought up regarding the parking on parent lineup at the end of a school day where we've had somewhere between 15 to 18 cars, depending upon the nights, that are parked in the 2-lane on Crow Creek. So looking at what we could do. We are currently working on, you'll see in our 5-year capital outlay project this summer, we'll be working with IMEG to redo the entrance into Pleasant View. And then when you get to a spot further up, there'll be a stacking zone where 2 cars can park next to each other and kind of zipper merge into the other part of the parking lot. In the meantime, trying to address what our options are, and address the concerns. Mr. Zimmer's been working very closely with Pleasant View Baptist Church to look at a possible way in this meantime, especially as we get closer to winter, what our options would be for that 15 to 20 minute window after school. Mr. Cotton, the principal, put out a message. This visual was one of them, along with a video explaining kind of how this all would work. And basically what transpires would be if you are coming from the west or you're coming up Crow Creek from the east, either way, if you see a blue car that's lined up by the softball field there, if it is full to that point, either direction you're coming from, you have to go down to the Pleasant View Baptist Church and enter down there on the east side, and they will allow us to stack cars around the back of their church to the front, and then you can see from the front of the church up to the entrance of the school. If there's not a car stacked up there, another car can then come up to that point and continue to, one by one, move into it. So we implemented it Friday night for the first time. Mr. Zimmer, how many cars? Maybe 15?
Yes.
On that first night. We went down there again today to direct the traffic, and there was 2 cars. Now, part of the reason why there's 2 cars is also you have to realize with Thanksgiving break approaching on Wednesday, some families do take additional days off, so our absentee rate was a little bit higher. But we'll be back down there again tomorrow, and then we will go again next Monday when we come back from Thanksgiving break to see what this looks like. I think the question right now is we are hoping that this becomes self-sufficient in and of itself, so you don't have to have someone out there directing traffic, telling a car to leave, to go up, but that'll be the next question that we will have to investigate there. We are working with Pleasant View Baptist Church, where we would do this if this works, we would continue to do this throughout the rest of the school year until the year is over, and we can start the construction project. So we will work with them in terms of what an agreement would be. We had talked about originally, as a board, we talked about plowing their lot for them this winter as a thank you gesture. But when talking to them, it just gets a little bit difficult in terms of when can our guys get over to plow it? When do they need it plowed by? What about the weekends and sidewalks? So right now, I think we're going to take that off the table, and we'll look at, they've sent us their bills of what they pay on a yearly average for snow plowing. So we might work around something of that nature with them if this is a situation that works. Kind of like a lease agreement. But we're very appreciative of the church. Work that Mr. Zimmer's been doing with them, the partnership with that, and we hopefully this will be a short-term solution until we get the long-term fix in. So, any questions?
Anybody have any questions?
I'm going to be curious how, like, those people coming from the west there, are they really going to go past it and go into the parking lot? Like, it'll be interesting when traffic is in full swing, how the courtesy works for that, you know?
We're not sure if it's going to be learned behavior or enforced behavior. We'll see.
How long do you anticipate having somebody, like are you gonna have 2 people monitoring the situation, or 1? Because on Friday, it was you and Mr. Cotton, right?
And Deputy Bawden. We had
So
3
3
of
people.
us, 1 at the end, 1 at the exit, and then 1 at the end of the drive. Today we did 2. 2 of us, Mr. Cotton and myself.
And you anticipating to have 2, for a while, or just will you ultimately go to 1?
I'm hoping through Friday, December 3rd, but then we'll monitor and just watch behavior.
Okay.
Is it, I just was wondering too how visible it was for the cars that are stacked up at the church to see that there's an opening up the drive of Pleasant.
That is hard.
So, and that'd be the picture you're seeing right now that Mr. Cotton put up there where in the yellow box around it. If you were parked right there on the very bottom of that picture, looking up to the sign is where you can see the fire hydrant. That's where the car would be parked. So, I mean, you can see it, but what Mr. Zimmer is talking about is when a bus comes out or cars are coming down, then you're kind of looking through them to see when the opening is there. So that'll be the tricky part.
Well, and I would think when the snow starts to stack up, the visibility will get even harder, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Do you know how many cars can be in that Pleasant View Baptist Church, like lined up, before it then ends up backing up again?
A lot.
A lot?
It's
more than the 12.
Clearly over 20, easily.
Okay.
I mean, it's a pretty big loop around there. Because at first we thought about just doing it in the front of the parking lot, but then they said we can go around the back. So, I mean, if I had to guess, you're probably looking at least 50 cars.
And does the church ever have anything going on during these times where
No.
they'll be navigating, people will be navigating between church traffic as well?
No, there's nothing going on at that time, and that time window is basically 2:58 to about 3:10. Today it was none.
Okay. Well, I'm happy that at least we have a little bit of a better plan now regarding the backups on Crow Creek. So,
Brian, I know we don't have the full picture of the Pleasant View lot there, but I know what that lot looks like. Can you just explain a little bit more what you're talking about, the construction this summer?
So if you went maybe 20 yards further where that last car is there, you'll actually start to see a line of trees on your right-hand side.
Right.
There's a drainage spot right there too, but just after the drainage spot where you could, whether we have to take down the trees, now I'm assuming we're probably going to have to, but you can create a second lane or another lane next to the current path right now. What that would allow you to do, you can stack 2 cars all the way along themselves.
And then right when they get close to the school, that's when they'll have
You know where it
zip.
breaks off to go into the big parking lot there on the side?
Yeah.
They would start zippering at that point to get single file to pick up their kids and then leave.
How many cars do you think could double stack in that area?
When we paced it off, we figured roughly 20. And Mr. Zink's in the back right now. What do you think?
Yeah, that's correct, 20 cars.
Yeah, and that's what IMEG was looking at right now. And they've sent us 2 designs right now that we're kind of working through to what it can look like, trying to get prices to what our options would be.
Got it. Thank you.
any other questions regarding this? Okay, there's no motion. 5-year capital projects plan, Ms. Leland, Mr. Zink, Mr. Klingsmith, and Mr. Struess.
So Kevin, if you could potentially, we'll really focus on what we call the base year and year 1. So really it's the green and the blue. Yeah, if you can get kind of maybe below those, because it's really hard to see. But before I turn to Mike, just kind of what we do as a district, we have a 5-year plan where we try to map out our capital projects plan that we would have, what are our options, and really Mike will kind of, and Leland will walk you through what we're looking at these 2 years, and then a lot of it ends up being some placeholders for money as we move forwards in years 2 through 5. And we know that at times emergencies will come up, so we have to shift the funds accordingly from one project to another. But we try to make sure as we look at this that we're trying to see long enough, far enough out into the future. As you'll see when you talk about like construction, you'll see some construction things on here as well. But just trying to make sure that we are wise and being aware of what's going to be coming up in the future. So with that, Mike and Leland, if you want to come up too, and anything you want to start with, Mike, go ahead.
All right, yeah, I'll start off. So as Brian said, this is a pretty fluid document. It changes fairly often based on as we identify new needs in the district. But the 2 years that we mainly focus on are what's shown on here. The column with the green letters and numbers is the base year. The base year is the current fiscal year. For school districts, our fiscal year runs from July 1st through the following June 30th. So the 2021-22 base year would run from July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. And then we have 5 additional years on here. Years 1 through 5 would be the next 5 fiscal years. So the year 1 would be the upcoming fiscal year that would start July 1st, 2022 and go through June 30th, 2023. So that's the column with the blue letters and numbers. So looking at the base year, you can see we start off in the far left column on here with the identification of the building. And so we have all of our elementary schools listed first. So you see Bridgeview Elementary School. In the base year, we have some restroom renovations currently budgeted at $100,000. Parking lot improvements, $75,000. Classroom modernization in the carpet and cafeteria, or carpeting in the cafeteria for classroom modernizations. Probably not carpet in the cafeteria, but carpeting in the building, and then some classroom modernization of the cafeteria, $80,000 set aside. The biggest project that we have, one of the biggest projects we have money set aside for in the base year is the roof replacement at Bridgeview. And we have that budgeted at $332,470. You may recall the board actually approved that project back at I think it was a May or June board meeting. We've been having some issues with getting the materials in for that project.
Right.
Leland, I don't know if you have anything to add to there, but.
And even if you look at the next year, the blue year, one thing we're looking at is we're having supply chain issues. The roofing materials for that project, they didn't even show up till September, October. So even though that project was meant to start in June 1st, materials didn't even arrive till September, October. And they even told us that if we're gonna do more roofing this coming year, we probably need to be bidding out in September, October to get materials, to hopefully get materials for next summer. So we're kind of pushing things a little bit just because we almost have to.
And the restroom renovations that you see on there also are kind of on hold right now because it would also be part of the roof at Bridgeview that's leaking right now is one of the restrooms we want to redo. So we have to wait to get that completed before we can do the renovations in that restroom.
Is that the south restroom at Bridgeview?
Yeah, so in the, the new addition, you look down the hallway, you'd see the colored restrooms. Well, if you look the other way, right between the kindergarten classrooms,
Yep.
that one right there. So we'd modernize it to look like the other one on the other end.
Great, thank you.
Then we've also been working on a boiler replacement at Bridgeview. Some of the expenditures related to that actually hit prior to July 1st in the previous fiscal year, but then we have just under $60,000 that has hit so far this year. Is that project done, Leland, now, the boiler replacement?
That's close to being done, yes.
All right, okay. Then looking at Cody Elementary School, we have $50,000 set aside for classroom modernization here in the base year at Cody. Then we had some money spent on a seclusion room out at Cody this year so far.
Leland, can you just touch base on what classroom modernization looks like in most of our buildings when they see this broad term?
It can vary a little. Well, first if you look at the flooring, a lot of the classrooms have about third of the room's tile, 2/3 is carpet, so it might be tile and carpet replacement. We look at the ceiling, lights have already been done, and it depends on the building. Some buildings, cabinetry. If we look at Pleasant View, a lot of the cabinetry in the classrooms is original. The lockers are original that are in the classrooms. They really need updated. So we're not looking at changing the size of the room. It's just a refresh of the whole area, and of course painting.
Does it include seating and desking as well? Is that part of seating and
Furniture.
desking?
No, that's not.
Okay.
You want to explain how we typically do sometimes how we pay for furniture?
Yeah, if it's a new construction situation, lots of times we pay for it out of the capital projects fund, along with where we pay for the actual building construction. Otherwise, if it's not a new construction situation, every year in about April or May or so, we send documents out to all the building principals for what we call our capital outlay request forms. And they send those back to us, and if it's not a new construction situation, that's usually where the like desks and chairs and those kind of things fall under capital outlay then, which is a little bit different budget than the new construction budget. Because that stuff usually comes out of general fund.
So for example, when we did Forest Grove, you set aside $1 million, and that $1 million hopefully takes care of all your furniture and different needs that you're going to have, not the structure of the building.
Moving on to next elementary is Forest Grove Elementary. And you see $125,000 shown there for the building construction. And in parentheses, you see the words CP fund, which just means our capital projects fund. We actually have about $900,000 or so still left to pay to the contractor and the architect on Forest Grove Elementary. But under generally accepted accounting principles, when there's a construction project, at the end of each fiscal year, you go ahead and recognize the expense for what's called the retainage on the project. And so at the end of the 2020-21 fiscal year, we recognized about $800 and some thousand of retainage on the Forest Grove project. So while we really have about $900,000 or so left to pay on the project, we've already recognized $800,000 or so of that in the previous fiscal year. So that's why it shows $125,000 left to be expensed in the current fiscal year on Forest Grove Elementary School. So once that's done, we will be finished paying off Forest Grove Elementary School. And the next building is Hopewell Elementary School. We have $90,000 set aside there for a possible additional entrance to Hopewell. I don't know if you have anything you want to add.
Yeah, that is one that we've had on here for probably 2 years. Remember when it first, maybe actually it's probably 3 years already it's been on. The plan would be, you know where the current Hopewell entrance is right now. If you went to the east, do we create another entrance there so you have kind of like an east entrance and a west entrance where you come in and come out? We put that on hold. Originally, we took a bid. We thought it'd be around $70,000 3 years ago, and it was definitely around $90,000. So we have not finalized this. We still have it on here as an option, but we'll kind of keep monitoring traffic and see what that looks like. If we need that, if not, then we'll shift that to another location if we decide not to move forward with that project.
There is an entrance over there, isn't there, on that east side?
Well, there'd be 3 of them.
Oh.
So right now you have the first one, which is kind of just on the far side, and what we've done is we've restructured the flow of that parking lot where cars can leave at the end of the night. They can leave in front of the school and head out that direction. Mm-hmm. This would be a third one further down, right on the house line, on the property lines there.
Thank you.
Then continuing on, looking at some of the more significant projects we have budgeted in the base year at Pleasant View. We have $80,000 budgeted to re-roof one area of Pleasant View, $75,000 set aside for classroom modernization at Pleasant View, and $150,000 set aside for restroom renovations in the library area or gym area at Pleasant View. Riverdale Heights, we have $25,000 set aside for classroom modernization in the base year. Then the high school, we have a number of projects shown for the high school in the base year. $100,000 set aside for classroom modernization, $144,000 set aside for a west end pump and boiler replacement, $38,000 for a roof area in the base year at the high school, and we'll talk more about roofs in a second here. $15,000 set aside for some improvements to the high school baseball and softball field area. In the base year, we are showing $100,000 for turf, track, and drainage, but you'll see if you look out at the year 1, year 2, and I think we have something in year 3 also. Oops, and I just accidentally minimized it on my screen here, but yeah, we have $100,000 in the first year, $510,000 in year 1, and then $1 million in year 2 for turf, track, and drainage at the high school. Did you want to say any more about that right now?
No, right now just we are in the end of our life on our current turf on the football field, soccer field, so it has to be replaced. We're hoping that the sub flooring will be strong enough from when we first did it but we know we have some drainage issues we need to deal with. There's some holes that we'll have to take into consideration. There's also some hole or crack underneath by the stadium as well when you walk in front of the locker room area that has to be addressed. So this is just kind of a 2 to 3 year window. It would not be this summer, but it would be the following summer when we look at replacing the turf and then also resurfacing the track at that same time. So both projects will be done not this summer, but the following summer. So ready for, what would that be, the 23-24 school year, I think? Would that be, yeah.
Was there a fundraising effort when we did the track the last time? Isn't there a plaque there that says about fundraising?
There was. Yeah, I think it was called the Reaching for Excellence fundraiser or something like that.
Yeah, that's when we redid that whole area at that time, and then we did the campaign.
Got it.
And also at the high school, we have some storm sewer repairs, which I believe we've already paid that $44,000 this current base year for storm sewer repairs at the high school. The junior high, we have $25,000 set aside for outdoor athletic facilities and exterior improvements, $25,000 for classroom modernization, and we also added some seclusion rooms out at the junior high, cost of $22,495. The Belmont Administration Center, you see, we have $70,000 set aside for safety and security in the base year. Actually, every year from the base year all the way out to at least year 4 on the 5-year capital projects plan, we have each year either $70,000 or $80,000 set aside for safety and security, which would include, I believe, adding additional cameras for security purposes. It's listed under Belmont, but actually it would be district-wide.
Yeah, district-wide.
Yes. Then also under Belmont, again, this wouldn't actually be a Belmont expense, but we have outdoor recreation development. Again, this would be a district-wide thing where we have money set aside in at least the first 3, well, the base year and year 1 and year 2, we have money set aside for outdoor recreation development, which would be a district-wide thing. And then the maintenance center, we have in the base year and year 1 some dollars set aside for fencing. The biggest change that you would see on this schedule from the previous time that we shared this with the board would be we have added significant dollars in years 1 through 5 for roof repairs and replacements. You can see 5 of our buildings. The high school, in the base year, we have $431,000 set aside to re-roof an area. The junior high in year 1, did I say the base year? Actually, in year 1, we have $431,000 set aside for the high school re-roof area. Year 2, at the junior high, we have $431,000 set aside for a re-roof. Year 3, $431,000 set aside for Pleasant View re-roof. Year 4, that same $431,000 set aside for Cody. And then year 5, $431,000 set aside for Riverdale Heights. And basically, these are kind of placeholders, I guess I would say. You know, obviously, it's not going to cost $431,000 to re-roof each of the 5 buildings. Correct, Leland, but...
What we've done is, instead of a 5-year window, we're looking more of a 20 and 30-year window. And said, okay, the roofs depend on how it was installed the last 20 to 30 years. So we already know the total cost of the roofs for the whole district is between $8 and $9 million. So we can just take that and divide it by 20 or 30 years. If we divide it by that, we know how much we need to replace in roofing every year. If we spend it or not, we might not spend it this year, but we have to spend it. We know in time we have to spend it. So that way we have the money and it's not, we just don't run across, hey, the junior high needs a new roof. It's $1.2 million and we don't have money set aside for it. So it's basically so we have the funds when we need it and we spend it like we should be spending on the roofs.
And give you the junior high one example. When you look where the junior high is placed right now, we might be able to wrap that into the construction of the new addition of the building as well. So if that's the case, if it's in that construction project, now you can take that money and shift it to a different location if the timing works out to be such.
We're in an area where we have a lot of thunderstorms, lots of hail. So if you end up doing some roof assessment and you find that there's a bunch of hail damage, does insurance play a part in any of this as well, or not really? Because sometimes if a roof has to be replaced maybe earlier than anticipated and there's hail damage, sometimes they will come in and help contribute. Do we have that type of process in place?
Even though most of the roofs are rubber, like asphalt shingles, but there's only like storage sheds and stuff like that have that type of roofing. Rubber roofing, really the hail doesn't damage it. It can damage the mechanical equipment though, like the chillers and air handling and stuff that are out there.
Okay.
And the other main things that we've added to the plan that wouldn't have been on here before are, speaking of chillers, we did add $300,000 for a chiller at the high school that you would see on year 4 of the 5-year plan. And then we also added $200,000 for a boiler at Riverdale Heights, which also is in year 4. Actually, we had already had $130,000 on the 5-year plan for a boiler at Riverdale Heights, and we added an additional $200,000 in year 4 to bring that up to $330,000. Then the other thing we added to the plan that we didn't have money on before was for gym floors at 3 of our elementary schools. In year 2, we added $25,000 to for sanding of some gym floors at Cody Elementary School. Year 3, we added $35,000 for sanding of gym floors at Pleasant View. And year 4, we added $30,000 for sanding of gym floors at Riverdale Heights. So that's, again, something new that wouldn't have been on the previous plan, but something that we identified that we need to get done here over the next few years.
Did we have the Pleasant View driveway entrance replacement on this?
It is. So if you look at year 1 in the blue, that's where that is located. Now the thing to remember is fiscal year is July 1st. So we could have some funds where, again, that money set aside there, it could come out of the current base year. It just goes back and forth.
Okay.
So it's listed in that second.
Was it on here before this year? Or
it was, as of last year we did.
it has been on there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It has expanded a little bit because they ran into, they're finding drainage issues. If you ever pulled in that parking lot.
Oh, yes. I
Wow,
watched
after you
many
take the
parents be
Y.
stuck and trying to leave choir concerts, and yeah, it's
But right where you
mess.
make the bend and you turn to the right,
Mhm.
there's always potholes right there.
Yes.
There's drainage issues right there, so all that's washing out from underneath, and that's part of what they're going to address now.
Okay.
So we expect the cost to actually come in higher than what we originally planned.
Okay.
Have you, I didn't see included on this, at the junior high, it's mostly cosmetic, but all the blue paint is coming off the, not all of it, but a lot of the blue paint is coming off that front
Yep.
entrance, and cosmetically compared to our other schools, it could use some work. So is that accounted for? Will that be addressed?
We actually tried addressing that last year. You know, just to be honest, because instead of just painting it, what they did then, they just painted it and all the paint just flaked off.
Mhm.
So we actually wanted to replace it with new metal, new powder coated metal, so it's meant to last for 20, 30 years. We couldn't get anybody to come out and give us bids on it.
Oh,
I think partly because people are running into labor issues, and they're also running into material issues.
yes. Okay.
But
So
yes, but yeah, I guess to answer the question, yes, we're trying.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
So, like, Catherine, the question comes down now, the time that we are at right now, we actually meet with FRK, our architects, next Monday, the 29th. We'll be meeting with them to start laying out the junior high construction project. And if that's the case, do we wait to replace that tin or whatever the front of the school would look like when we actually do that construction project, which would be opening up, I think, in 24, 25 is our anticipated date there. So, yeah. Do you spend the money now, or do you wait till you can redo the whole entrance?
Yeah, because when you redo the whole thing, it's gonna be a lot more, the pricing's gonna be a lot better. We've also got we've got 2 chillers that make chilled water for the cooling out there. One's, it's out of it, it's end of life.
Mhm.
But we're just waiting. It's still running fine. It doesn't have any issues, but we're waiting to see until we get the new addition planned out and do it at that time.
The other thing we're working on right now would be when you come into the junior high, you know, we talked last time with the Leclerc, when they came here and talked about the sidewalk that will be coming in. It'll run on the east side of that road, so right where that old the concession stand building sits. We may end up taking that down and kind of redoing that whole area. And then we're also working with a team to come in and redo that baseball field, because if you look in the right field, it drops down. We have a company that's willing to come in and help us with that project. So you see that on here in year 1. That could happen probably late this spring is what we're looking at, doing something with that once we get this all figured out with the sidewalk coming in.
Okay.
Can you refresh my memory on, I'm sorry, were you done? Or do we?
Done with this page,
Yep,
and then,
okay.
yes.
Can you refresh my memory on Riverdale Heights? Because I thought in the past we had more money in there for classroom modernization, but was that kind of alleviated a little bit with Forest Grove opening and moving some of the programs out there? Or did we actually do it and I just forgot?
No, you're remembering it exactly correct. We had set aside about $1 million at one point when Jim was here about looking at adding like a new faculty lounge, some office areas and things of that nature. By moving the Level 3 ASD program to Forest Grove, we opened up some classroom space, which alleviates some office space as well. So right now we have nothing on our docket for that big $1 million expansion that we had talked about at one point.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Any other questions from the board? I have a couple. So we had gotten, a couple of meetings ago, we were talking about how there's gonna be a roundabout by the junior high, and there might be some expense associated with the entrance there, or the refiguring of that. Some of that obviously Leclerc is gonna pay for, right? But then, do we have any expense associated with that? And if so, is that on here or not?
I mean, right now, I don't know what that number would be. They anticipated that being about $15,000 when they talked about it before. We
Okay.
have not come to a conclusion as to what that would be, whether it's half that amount, but we could use these funds as a way to pay for that too.
Okay. Okay, that's the first one. Second question is, Leland, you kind of mentioned it already, but obviously we're heading into a time where we have these construction projects that we have in line, but we know that there's supply chain issues. There's even labor shortages throughout the whole country. So how are we gonna adjust the whole process? Are we just gonna start bidding much earlier for all these things to be done, or how are you planning on handling that so that we're not caught in a situation where we can't have something done?
I mean, you're hitting it right on it. We're having a bid earlier. We originally planned on bidding like right now, actually, to have bids done. But then all of a sudden they're like, November was too late. They said especially if you look at, we'll talk about Amazon. Amazon bought like 30% of all the roofing structures. They're building so many warehouses across the whole United States. They put a huge hurt on everybody else, to be honest. So they said, really, if you want to do something, you need to be bidding all the way back in September, which typically we were doing it in February, March. So now you have to shift that whole cycle by at least 6 months. So you really got to look forward a long ways. And really, with all the growth that PV has, it takes a lot of conversations and a lot of forethought on the whole thing. Because the last thing we want to do is do something and double up on it. We don't want to replace something, then 2 years later we're doing a remodel or an addition there and have to do it again. But to answer your question, yes, we have to really look forward a long ways.
And that could be a fluctuating number too, because even if the supply chain, let's say, starts to become better, but there's still labor shortage, then we're dealing with that issue. So I'm assuming you're going to keep a pulse on that, and if they say go 10 months out or 12 months out, we may have to do that.
Correct. But it's not just us that we have to get used to that. It's all the people that are actually all the people that are doing the bidding and the
Yeah.
pricing to get their schedule changed.
Yeah.
So that, because they're all used to doing it in February. Now to get them to try to do it in September and take the risk because they don't know what the pricing's going to be in June when they start the project.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't know if that'll make the pricing go up then because they have more risk. There's a good chance it could.
Okay. All right. Any other questions at all? Okay. Is that it, Mr. Klingsmith, on the 5-year capital projects plan?
Unless Brian wanted me to go through the other.
No, I think I just point out what I think we missed in that year, in our current base year underneath Belmont, was the replacement of our phone system. Kevin's been working with a company right now to replace our entire phone system in the district because of we've maxed the ability of what we have right now. So that'll be coming here. Kevin, when are we finishing that up, do you think, this
We'll implement it this summer.
Summer.
So we just ordered the equipment last week, and then, again, like Mr. Zink said, the lead times are 4 to 5 months out, so we'll get it, configure them, then install it after school gets out.
Okay.
So we won't have as many messages that the phones are down.
They've subsided somewhat.
They have.
That's a different issue.
Oh, it is.
That's a Windstream issue.
Okay.
That's not a phone system issue.
Okay.
That's a provider issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're trying to look at some other options there as well. There's some different companies.
So, next, there's no motion, no required motion there. So next is going to be the tentative look at the 2022-2023 school calendar. Mr. Struess?
Yeah. Grab that sheet there. So going through on the screen right now, we have been in conversations with Bettendorf, North Scott, and Davenport as well, trying to see how things will line up. As you recall, the last few years we've tried to make, for example, our calendars look somewhat similar, and especially around the breaks. So if we have parents who are, say, teachers in both districts, that they can have the same time off as well. So going through right now, we've taken this to our teachers for the first draft with the PVA at IBPS the other night, just to kind of get it out there. We won't actually approve this until January, but I'll kind of walk you through again. Remember, when we look at our calendar, we have to have 1,080 hours or 180 days. That's what we have to meet. We do start school, as you'll look there, on August 23rd, which is a Tuesday this coming year. So when you go back to some days, the couple weeks prior to that, you see the orange. The orange is our new teacher institute, so we bring them in on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then they have Monday. We give them a day off, and then we bring all teachers back on the 17th, 18th, 19th, and 22nd. So what we are working on right now is the finalization of what happens on some of those nights. So for example, on like the 18th would be our elementary open house, when you meet and greet. So we're working on putting those dates once we get this large structure put in place. But as you see going through, in September, pretty straightforward. You would have your Labor Day and then our one early out. October again, the 22nd would be our professional development and also Records Day there. The 24th is the Monday that we would have off to give a small break there, so families have a 4-day weekend. November, you see the second early out. We would continue what we've done here this week, which, you know, we've tracked it over the years. Do you have Wednesday off of Thanksgiving? Do you have school on that Wednesday of Thanksgiving? And it's hard to decide. I mean, so we've kept it off and feel that's a good way to kind of give everyone a little bit longer break. It allows people time to travel on that day as well. But that is a day where you could move it. You could have school and maybe free up somewhere else, but people kind of like that travel day. December, you'd have the early out. You'd see then we'd start winter break on the 22nd would be the first day. And we return on January 3rd, so it's just short of 2 weeks, but you have 2 full weekends in that structure. Fourth early out, let's see, the next one there would be the 16th in red. That's Martin Luther King Day, which would be open on that day, and there's no professional development that day. Everyone has that one off. February 1st, early out. The 17th and 20th, similar to October. That would be the day where it's, again, records, and it would be professional development, and then, again, 4-day weekend for parents with President's Day on that one. I should have gone back, and with this calendar, where it works out perfectly is January 13th is actually the 90th day of school. So for secondary world, for our high school, we'd have a 90-90 split at this point. So for the semester, you have 90 days on both sides, which is always nice. March, you can see we have the early out. Spring break would be the week of the 13th to the 17th. Some people might say, well, that always seems early. But the positive to that is the following. The 13th marks the first day of spring sports. And actually, it works out very nice when we do it that week because coaches typically take that week off then, and they just start then when they come back on the 20th versus starting a week of practice, then having a spring break, and then coming back. So it's worked well. Like I said, I think all of us in the 4 here will have that same spring break. April, you can see the early out, and the 7th is a day off. May 3rd, graduation would be the 28th, which is the Sunday before Memorial Day. Our last day of school, provided no snow, anything of that nature, will be Friday, June 2nd, is where we would land on that day. Again, just a reminder, just as a point reminder here, if you scroll back, Mr. Penninkamp, to February, just a reminder like we sent out earlier this year, we would once again potentially use February 17th as a snow makeup day if we needed to, if it's prior to February 10th. It just buys us a day so we can hopefully get through and keep that last day of school set. You don't have to add days on to the end since virtual snow days or virtual weather days are not possible. I'll take any questions, but that's the broad strokes of this calendar as we continue to work through. You know, one thing we've talked about is, and we're working on right now, we may, if possible, we look to approve this calendar probably at our January, is it 12th board meeting, I think is our board meeting in January 10th, might be the Monday. We'd approve it at that point, so we'll do some more fine tuning here in December as well. One thing we've talked about is looking at, do we ever look at adding another early out day, say on the third Wednesday of the month? That's what we're looking at right now. Just from a professional development standpoint for our teachers and trying to find time for them from a learning standpoint. So we're doing a bunch of research on what that can look like. We just run out of time. You know, when you're looking at writing curriculum, when you're writing things from professional development for our teachers, time for them to work through some items, PLC's we time. So we'll bring that back. But that doesn't have to be approved with this calendar. That can be a separate part of we have a helping committee looking at that right now. We do surveys, but again, that's kind of part B. This would definitely be intact though for the 22-23 school year. This would be our calendar right now that we are looking at.
You're thinking, when you talk about this Wednesday, this third Wednesday, every third Wednesday of the month or just a few?
So right now, when you look at our calendar, we have 9 early outs. There are districts around us who have an early out every single Wednesday. We've never gone down that path, and we haven't thought that we needed to go down that path. If you add in 9 more early outs, it basically, with the holiday breaks and the winter breaks and so forth, it really does become the third Wednesday of every single month. So it'd be the first and the third is basically when you'd have the early outs. And
what happens with the 1080 hours? How does that affect that?
So that's what we're looking at right now, and that's a great question, 1,080 hours. If you were to take and add another early out, we would be just above our 1,080 hours at the elementary. So what we've looked at is what would happen if you add 5 minutes on to the end of a school day. If you add 5 minutes on to the end of the school day, it's neutral in terms of what you lost at the elementary. So it's like 15 hours. You would gain 15 hours back by adding the 5 minutes on. But again, there's many things when it comes to busing, conversation. What does that look like? Do you add it on just to the elementary, not the junior high and high school? We have one of the longest high school days already in the state, so I don't think we have to add anything on there. It alleviates, gives you 5 more minutes sometimes on busing, but it can become 5 minutes longer at the high school. So those are conversations that we have to have, but 5 minutes puts you back. Actually, you gain an hour from what we currently have today. So those would be questions we have to ask ourselves. What's the value?
Okay. Any preliminary questions on this draft version for 2022-2023 school year from the board?
Brian, I was thinking that we had another snow day option. Is it just it's just the February one that's an option?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe this year, do we get out on a Thursday?
That was going through my mind right now. I don't know what
Okay.
day we end this year.
Okay.
I don't know if I have that, 21, 22. Actually, I do. We end, yes, we do, on a Thursday this year.
Okay, so
you
that
could've
was our
had one
extra
at the end.
day. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It just seems really hard to go into that second week of June, or, I guess in this case, the first week of June.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, from a school standpoint, we'd love to start school on the 22nd, that Monday.
Yeah.
But we just can't right now because of legislation. You can't start till the 23rd. Unless the 23rd is on a Sunday, then you can start on that Monday, the 24th.
Okay. Anything else? High school course of study recommendation. Mr. Zimmer.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Erickson and his team.
So I'm here with Janelle Werline, our English department lead, and Catherine Wolfinger, one of our instructional coaches. And we're here for a proposal for to create a course, more combine 2 courses into one. And just I'll let them. I would want to go ahead. They've got a presentation. But essentially, when you look at our English track, we have a full year of English 9, followed by a full year of English 10, And then after that, we get into electives. So we've done some research over what those electives are across the different levels as well. And we have we believe, a proposal that would kind of combine two courses and allow us to streamline and better prepare the education. So I'll let them take it over.
Again, I'm Catherine Molfinger. It's my 3rd year as an instructional coach at the high school. Before I taught language arts at the junior high.
And Catherine and I have been working together on creating a proposal for you today. So English 11 would be the collaboration of, elimination of college writing and American literature. And we're going to kind of tell you why we're thinking about this now.
Sure. So at this point, for this school year, the juniors who have enrolled, you can see how many have enrolled in our different levels. So 70% of our juniors are currently enrolled in college writing and American literature. Those are semester courses. So they might take American Lit first semester and college writing second semester, or college writing first semester, American literature second semester.
And it basically tells us that we already have an English 11 within these two courses. But the literature is done in one semester and the writing is done in a second semester. And our goal is to collaborate the reading and writing together as it is in English 9 and English 10. So, and why now as well? We really think this is the best move for student learning. It's really about the students. But also we are looking for a more aligned, consistent, equitable opportunity for juniors, because when the master schedule is put together, American Lit and college writing are two of the classes placed in. And so, for instance, with American Lit, we have had 8 teachers teach American Lit in the past 3 years. With English 11, we were able to make a strong team of probably 4 teachers who actually then have a common prep time to PLC, which is something our American Lit teachers and college teachers don't typically have. Besides that, we're also going to offer a co-taught environment for English 11 students, which will be nice in the general education setting as well.
And Janelle had mentioned before, and we work together a lot. I bring like the curriculum and standards work in, and creating that consistency. We have an English 9 and English 10, so again, creating consistency with that English 11. And even if you go back further at the junior high, there's 7th grade language arts and 8th grade language arts, and those are combined, reading, writing, speaking, and listening, all in the same class. So,
and after English 11, they'd go on to senior year where they'd have more choices for electives of their choice.
So kind of going into what Ms. Moreline said, right now with both American Lit and college writing taking place simultaneously both semesters, the two courses aren't, there's a disconnect. The teachers who teach one course don't necessarily teach the other, and not that there's anything wrong with those courses, but with the fact that our juniors that is essentially the track of courses they're taking, we'd like to make sure that the right hand knows what the left hand is doing between the two courses and start to merge that and work on them cohesively.
Oh, another thing to talk about as well is that a typical English 9, English 10 classroom I teach primarily, actually all English 9 this year. We have a class size about 27 to 28. Our writing classes typically max out at 20, sometimes minus 17, 18 students. So our suggestion for English 11 would be that we'd have a cap size of 24 because our writing intensity is going to be so high because we're combining these two classes together. And college writing typically does about 4 or 5 large papers throughout a semester. Our plan with English 11 is to do 6 intensive writings, 1 power standard per unit over the course of the year and integrate in with the writing. And that's what the research basically tells us, that the reading and writing standards go together. We're interwoven, and we want this class to be the same way.
So we just put a few things research related up here. So NCTE is the National Council for Teachers of English. So they really stress that reading and writing are integrated. We write in response to what we read, and sometimes we read in order to enhance what we're writing. So really combining those two, it's really exciting talking to the teachers who teach American Lit or college writing, saying, oh my goodness, I'm teaching American Lit and it's really heavy reading wise, and college writing is really heavy writing wise, and it would be so amazing to bridge those two and see what kids can do, especially connecting that writing to what they're reading.
In addition, we tie that to students because some students struggle with the intensity of a writing class. It's writing, 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 or American Lit, reading, reading, reading. This will give them more of an opportunity to be able to go fluctuate between the two and then show their strengths and potentially work, obviously, on those skills as well.
We're also hoping to increase the relevance of both of them. Right now, when you're in college writing, you're a lot of times going on topics that are just your choice or passions you're trying to find. Or the same thing when you're doing your reading in American Lit, you're connecting that to what will my test be or that content. We're hoping that the reading will lead directly into some of the writing and text analysis that they're doing in college writing, and again, getting your writing to help support what you're reading and your reading to help support what you're writing, as opposed to doing those two classes again in isolation.
And finally, in English, we follow the Common Core standards, and those fit really well when you're bundling standards to connect a reading standard with a writing standard. And actually, one of our writing standards asks or requires students to draw evidence from their literary or informational texts and support the analysis or reflection and research that they're doing. So the standards are pushing kids to do that. It's just a natural fit for us to put those two classes together.
Looking at key concepts for the class itself, English 11, we will still stay very American literature based. So that will be the foundation literature in the class. We, though, may, from time to time, bring an excerpt of something from a different culture when talking about perspectives or things like that. We are going to focus primarily on this standards here. Number 2 basically is a standard for you. We'll be focusing on the 3 major types of writing: argumentative, informative, and narrative. These are also the 3 types of writing that are tested on the ISAP testing, and we will focus on those. We hit all of them. There's one of those power standards for one of those 3 categories in every unit in English 11. And lastly, we're of course always going to be drawing evidence from texts and working with that through research, writing, reflection, everything.
So this is, the next 2 slides are a general overview of the 6 units that we've put together, constructed.
We basically have essential questions, ideas for each unit. English 11 will be a year-long course. They will potentially change a teacher at semester, but it will be just like English 9 or 10, where it is a course that goes throughout the year. So we'll start the beginning journey with narrative writing, looking at, you can see the bottom is basically what that power standard is going to, what we're going to be assessing, and the writing on the bottom, and then the questions are what we're focusing on. So we're still focusing on American literature, but making those connections with the writing. The second half here, one of the big staples of college writing, which is super important for us to keep, is the argumentative research paper. And we're saying 6 units because that unit is probably going to be like 8 weeks. So it's almost 2 units within itself, but that argumentative writing piece is so important to prepare our students for college entrance and what they'll be working on when they get to college. And so you'll see that research paper is there on the bottom for that. And it's basically a whole kind of journey from beginning to end, and at the end reflecting on, okay, what have we learned, what do we know now, what have we learned about ourselves and our voices.
And the nice thing about keeping the research and argumentative writing in this spot is kids who take college writing first semester are doing that research their first semester of their junior year. Teachers will be able to build in those research skills throughout the year so that kids are really prepared in March, April to really dig in. They've had some of that practice and research leading up to this, so this is a time for them to really dig into it.
And finally, we just have some ideas of some of the core things we're going to be doing as far as text. We'll be doing some larger text, of course, American authors, American text. We didn't list all the potential short stories or Gothic lit, things that we will be reading here in English 11, but we do have a kind of idea of where we're going to be going with it, primarily based from the American literature curriculum that we already have established at high school.
So we're kind of calling it a new course. It's, I would say, in large part done because it's combining the American Lit and the college writing, but also by changing the approach, streamlining some of the units. It's going to, I would say it's mostly done, but there's a lot of room for supplement. There's a lot of room for adaptation into as we work and start blending the reading and writing together.
one question. So would this English 11 replace those 2 semester courses? So those would not be options anymore?
Correct.
Like their only option would be English 11?
Correct.
Got it. Thank you.
Are those 2 semester courses currently though not optional either? I mean, most 11th
Yeah, like you
graders
said,
take
no,
those.
70% are taking those 2 classes.
The other percentage, what are they at?
Yeah, we essentially, we have like 3 different levels. So I think it has been all but approximately over the past 5 years, anywhere from 2 to 5 students as a junior that took as far as either they were in the AP language, they were in critical writing and young adult lit, and then if they were in what we call our college track, all but anywhere from maybe 2 to 4 took American Lit and college writing, or college writing and American Lit. And while we feel both of those classes are essential, actually right now this would actually, where it's a very tiny hole, it would also plug this hole as far as being able to circumvent getting around those 2 courses, because we believe they're very key important courses on your way for college prep.
And this would be like a prerequisite then for those senior electives.
So Janelle, what would the impact be on the AP? Kids could still take the AP courses, they just take it as an elective their junior or senior year.
This really doesn't affect, English
Correct.
is not going to affect our honors track. If people want to stay in the honors track, they'll stay on it. And AP Lang really itself has its own AP standard, so it's not really attached to English 11. I spoke to Dr. Lumber, who was our teacher, about this prior to the presentation, just to verify that with her. But yeah, AP Lang will not be affected.
And we're actually hoping, and when you look at like our critical writing and young adult lit 1 of the reasons where some students possibly gravitate towards that track is because college writing can be a barrier for some students, because in a 1 semester course it is huge. It's a lot of writing, it's very in-depth, there's a lot to it. We hope that those students who maybe aren't as strong writing, but spreading it across a year instead of 1 semester can make it a little bit more accessible, and we can actually get more students from the lower track into that college track with a little bit more support. And moving, a lot of times it's not the reading, it's the writing that is the barrier, and we hope that spreading that out a little bit allows us to support them a little better and possibly move some students.
And all of our honors courses anyways are year-long classes anyways. So we're just basically, they already are. It just makes sense for us to have another year-long course for our juniors.
Any other questions? So you're combining the 2 classes. Are there things that were in each individual class separately that now won't be, let's say, taught because you're combining the 2? Is it creating any deficiencies at all? Like let's say in college writing, there might be a project on writing something not necessarily related to American literature. And so if that is created, how are those deficiencies going to be rectified in this 1-year class, or do you not really see any deficiencies when you take it each class separately and see if you're going to be losing anything when you combine the 2?
Well, Ms. Walter and I, we created the scope and sequence with basically outlining every unit, also aligning, picking standards, and looking at both curriculums. And I don't feel that we really are losing anything. We're actually gaining more, but 1 more writing piece, really. We're also spending so much time in the research. I don't think we're really losing much from our typically, well, some teachers taught American a little differently, so some things we're talking about here. We used to go chronologically, right? And we're still going to be maybe not going chronologically, we're still hitting most of those periods. But I don't think that we're losing anything. I think we're going to be gaining more than than anything else.
Through the design of the schedule and the number of electives offered each semester, there are some times where one teacher may have a section of American Lit 1st semester but can't teach it 2nd, or across the board, as Ms. Warline said, we've had 8 different teachers teach an American Lit class just over the past 3 years. So if anything goes away, what we're hoping to, there will be none of the seminal benchmarks, keystone foundations. We're actually hoping that by combining this and getting the curriculum more streamlined, even some of those maybe more, the additional material, the supplementary sort of things will actually start to streamline, and it'll create a more common experience for all of our students.
We're not dialing anything down by creating this year-long course.
And have there been any districts in either our area or in the state that have already done this? And if so, have you gotten any feedback from them? And
I haven't reached out to them particularly. I did some research and went on their websites and found their class offerings. So larger districts like such as Cedar Rapids, the Des Moines School District, they have English 11 offerings as opposed to semester courses.
okay.
We were curious what other people were doing, and so we did look. And like a lot of the texts that we're talking about, like everyone reads Gatsby. You know, they're doing similar things to what we're proposing. Similar, what do you want to say, literature units as far as literature itself. So we have kind of done a little research on that.
Yeah, in the Common Core standards, they're at the high school level, it's a 9-10 band and then an 11-12 band. And in that 11-12 band for reading literature, it specifically addresses American literature. So that's why it's so common in most school districts, because the standards really require a focus on that American lit.
And if you look across our core curriculum, go to social studies, math, and science, the vast majority of our courses are year-long courses. The electives get into maybe senior year and into more specialized sort of things, discrete math, and I'm just thinking of a few. But most of the courses that students experience, particularly through their first years of school, earth science, biology, physical science, algebra, geometry, algebra 2, keep going, U.S. history, modern history. Now the exception is government econ, because those are two radically different courses, but every student takes government econ or econ government. So we're also thinking that reducing those electives and getting that common English 9, English 10, English 11 would more mirror our freshman, sophomore, and junior experience, and then more of the electives at the senior level.
Great. Wonderful. Any other questions at all? Okay, and we are not making a motion on this meeting, but we will in December. So, no requirement. Thank you very much for coming and
Thank
giving
you.
us some insight into that. Okay, now moving on to some financial things. SBRC request for modified supplemental amount for excess LEP limited English proficiency costs for the 2020-21 school year. Mr. Klingensmith.
All right, yeah, this and the next two items on the agenda are things that we normally do at approximately this time of the year annually. At the Department of Education, Iowa Department of Education, there's a committee called the SBRC, which stands for School Budget Review Committee, and they meet in December to consider the requests that we are going to be presenting here tonight. The first one is the SBRC request for modified supplemental amount for excess LEP, limited English proficiency cost, for the previous fiscal year, the 2020-21 fiscal year. We receive a certain weighting per student for kids who have been in the limited English proficiency program for 5 years or more. And similar to how special education works in Iowa, the funding that we get through that supplemental weighting for limited English proficiency is not enough to cover the costs that we have most years for LEP. And similar to special ed, there's most school districts in Iowa are in a similar situation where the funding that they get each year for LEP does not cover the costs that are associated with it. There is an application out on the Iowa Department of Education portal where you do the calculations for what your LEP surplus or deficit is, and that, according to those calculations for the prior fiscal year, our deficit for LEP was $69,948. One of the main rules of thumb in Iowa school finance is you never turn down a chance to get additional spending authority. And basically what modified supplemental amount is, it's additional spending authority. And spending authority in Iowa school finance is kind of sometimes compared to like your credit card limit. And so if you have a chance to, get more spending authority, like I say, you don't want to turn that down. So what the motion would be tonight would be to submit this request or authorize this request to the School Budget Review Committee to be able to get additional spending authority to cover that amount of the district's 2020-21 fiscal year LEP deficit of $69,948.
Does anybody have any questions? If not, I will take a motion.
I move that the board authorize a request to the SBRC for modified supplemental amount for excess LEP costs for serving English language learners in a limited English instructional program during the 2020-21 school year in the amount of $69,948, or the amount determined by the Iowa Department of Education after review.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Kunkel, second by Mr. Ayers, that the board authorize a request to the SBRC for modified supplemental amount of excess LEP costs for serving English language learners in a limited English instructional program during the 2020-21 school year in the amount of $69,948, or the amount determined by the Iowa Department of Education after review. Roll call vote, please, Ms. Stamen.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Brockman?
Yes.
Mr. Cadwisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoskins?
Yes.
Mrs. Kunkel?
Yes.
Dr. Wagley?
Yes. Okay, and you want to just keep going, Mr. Quinnipiac?
Sure, yeah. So the previous item on the agenda was related to last fiscal year. The next two items are related to the current fiscal year, the 2021-22 fiscal year. The next one is the SBRC request for modified supplemental amount for increased enrollment. The certified enrollment here at Pleasant Valley, which was taken on October 1st of this year, we increased by another 179.4 resident students on the certified enrollment for this year. And again, you can get a fraction of a student because of those weightings. For example, homeschool assistance students only get a 0.3 weighting instead of a full weighting, and things like that. So that's how you can get a fraction of a student. So again, we were up 179.4 students. When a district grows in enrollment, they can get, again, modified supplemental amount, which again equates to additional spending authority to help cover the cost of serving those students in the current fiscal year. In Iowa school finance, the funding based on the foundation formula actually runs a year behind. So we will not actually get the cash, the funding for those students until next year, but we can get the spending authority to be able to incur expenses to serve those students in this current year by getting this, what is called on-time funding. So how it's calculated, it's the 179.4 students that we grew times the what's called the district cost per pupil for next year, which is $7,330 is how you calculate that, the amount that we can get. So for us, that would equate to $1,315,002 in additional spending authority that we can get for this year by making this request to the School Budget Review Committee.
Any
So that's all I
questions?
have.
Any questions regarding this?
Just as a note, a year ago, we were up 115.8 students, and this year we were up 179.4 students, so we were up by about, 50-some students more than we were a year ago. So the amount that we can get for on-time funding is greater than it would have been a year ago.
And that $7,330 that you have mentioned, every year, how is that number calculated? Do you know? The district cost per pupil?
Well, when the Iowa legislature meets each year, that's basically SSA, supplemental state aid. So, for this current fiscal year, it was the 2.40%.
2.4, right.
And so that number would be 2.40% higher than it was a year ago.
Okay.
How did that fit the projection for growth in the District 179? Was that right on what we were
We
expecting?
knew we
or-
were going to be up pretty significantly.
From where we were originally, I think we figured it was 32 higher than we thought it was going to be this year, which is basically, when you look at 32, that's about what that number was with the open enrollment from Davenport into us. So, a little higher.
Any other questions? If not, I'll take a motion.
I move that the board authorize a request to the SBRC for the 2021-22 fiscal year for modified supplemental amount of $1,315,002, or the amount determined by the Iowa Department of Education after review, due to an increase of certified enrollment from the prior year.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Hoskins, second by Ms. Brockman, that the board authorize a request to the SBRC for the 2021-2022 fiscal year for modified supplemental amount of $1,315,002, or the amount determined by the Iowa Department of Education after review, due to an increase of certified enrollment from the prior year. Roll call vote, please, Ms. Damon.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Brockman?
Yes.
Mr. Canwisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoskins?
Yes.
Mrs. Kunkel?
Yes.
Dr. Wadley?
Yes. And then, the last issue for you regarding this.
Right. Okay, this is somewhat similar to the item that we did a couple items ago on the agenda, because it's also related to the LEP program. However, this is related to the supplemental amount that we can get for the current fiscal year for LEP. So again, this is related to the students who have been in our LEP, or here at Pleasant Valley, we sometimes refer to it as the ELL, English Language Learner Program. And again, it's for kids who have been in the district for more than in the ELL or LEP program for more than 5 years. And we have 5 students who are considered intermediate services for LEP, and this year we have 1 student who is considered intensive services for LEP that have been in the program for more than 5 years. Intermediate gets a .21 weighting, and intensive gets a .26 weighting. So if you multiply those numbers times the number of students, times again that district cost per pupil amount of $7,330, that would allow us to request $9,602 for, again, modified supplemental amount for the current 2021-22 fiscal year, for those costs related to the LEP. And again, this will likely not cover our actual costs for this year. And then if that is the situation, next year we would be doing what we did 2 agenda items ago to try to get additional spending authority to cover the excess costs in the LEP program.
Questions?
And I just say Mike is accurate that we have seen a growth here since the start of the school year in our ELP program with students moving in. So I anticipate we'll have higher students next year than we do right now.
Okay, we'll take a motion.
I move that the board authorize a request to the SBRC for the 2021-22 fiscal year for modified supplemental amount of $9,602, or the amount determined by the Iowa Department of Education after review, related to the English Language Learning Program for students who have exceeded 5 years of waiting that are included on the fall 2021 certified enrollment headcount.
Take a second.
Oh, second. Sorry. Oh, sorry.
Motion by Ms. Kunkel, second by Ms. Hoskins, that the board authorize a request to the SBRC for the 2021-2022 fiscal year for modified supplemental amount of $9,602, or the amount determined by the Iowa Department of Education after review, related to the English Language Learning Program for students who have exceeded 5 years of waiting that are included in the fall 2021 certified enrollment headcount. Roll call vote, please, Ms. Damon.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Brockman?
Yes.
Mr. Canwisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoskins?
Yes.
Mrs. Kunkel?
Yes.
Dr. Wadley?
Yes. And finally, Ms. Kinley-Smith, the October monthly financial statements.
Okay, well, once again, I didn't really notice anything that was significantly different than expected on the October monthly financial report that's in your board packet. As I pointed out the previous months of the fiscal year, just a reminder, nutrition fund, we continue to give the free basic lunch to students in the district, and that is being made up by federal reimbursement. So that, that's just different than how things looked in the nutrition fund prior to COVID. But that will continue to be the situation, we believe, the rest of this fiscal year, that the free lunches will be in effect for the rest of the fiscal year in nutrition fund. And then the other fund, as I've pointed out the last couple of months, that looks a little bit different this year compared to a year ago, is the student activity funds. Because of fans being in the stands at athletic events and music things and other activities like that, both our revenue and expenses are higher this year than they were compared to a year ago in the student activity funds. But nothing at all to be concerned about. You can see our balance in our student activity funds is actually almost $100,000 higher than it was at this time a year ago in the student activity funds. So that's all I had to point out on the October monthly financial reports. I'll take any questions if anybody has any questions, otherwise just need a motion.
Sorry.
Any questions?
I have one question. And I think I was supposed to ask this around the consent agenda because you had the bank confirmations in there.
Mhm.
Is that something that you always show us and I just don't remember, or was there
We
a
just
reason
started
that we had
doing
to see
it.
that?
We started up again, doing it again like last year.
Okay.
When we were going through our board policies, we realized that that was one of the requirements in, I forget which board policy it was,
Oh, that's fine.
in the 800 series.
Okay.
And so there is still a section of the Iowa code that requires that. So I guess there's two reasons we're doing it. There's a section in the Iowa code that requires it, and it's in our board policy. And we caught it when we were reviewing our board policies a year ago, so that's why we're doing it again.
And so the policy just says that you have to show us the bank confirmation from the audit, basically?
We believe that that satisfies the requirement for giving an authorized, account of the money that's in our bank accounts as of the end of the fiscal year.
Okay.
And since that's done by our auditors,
Right.
it's pretty solid, I guess you would say.
Correct. Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Okay, if not, I will take a motion on the October monthly financial statements, please.
I move the board accept the monthly financial report for October 2021 as presented.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Ayers, second by Ms. Brockman, that the board accept the monthly financial reports for October 2021 as presented. Roll call vote, please, Ms. Stamen.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Brockman?
Yes.
Mr. Canwisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoskins?
Yes.
Mrs. Kunkel?
Yes.
Dr. Wagley?
Yes. Mr. Congressman, I know that in the federal legislation, all that's been passed, there's been several, obviously, bills that have been passed, these trillion-dollar packages. From what I understand, there might be some things earmarked for education. How will you get guidance from the DE then to determine how we might be able to apply and obtain some extra funding for that?
Yes, I believe guidance will be coming from the Iowa Department of Education on that.
Okay, great, wonderful. Is there anything else for the good of the order? We have our next date. We only have one board meeting in December, and that's going to be December 6th after what we determined today at 5:30. And then our next one after that is Monday, January 10th at 6 p.m. here as well. Is there anything else for the good of the order? If not, this meeting is adjourned.
Excuse me, I have a quick question, since I'm sure it was just an oversight, but after Zach spoke, the other parents were allowed to ask questions or bring up any issues before you went on to interview.